The All-Australian committee, right? And I really don't care about who's in the team.
Yeah.
I have never heard anyone speak about how you actually do it. I think people listening, again, mate, honestly, like you know who's out.
Okay.
But like, how does it work? What happens in it? It feels like a criminal trial. We don't know what happens to the jurors. What do you guys do? Like, how do you do it?
Yeah, so there's 9 selectors and Andrew Dillon's the chairman, but non-voting. So he just chairs it and makes sure there's some unity and we get, the program right. So we meet 3 times a year. The first one is after round 10 or 11, and the clubs nominate players.
Right.
We'll go through Adelaide. So Abby Holmes does Adelaide, let's just say, right? So she'll go 4 players. Yep. And the reasons why, going really well. Riley Thilthorpe's taken 25 contested marks. He's kicked 20 goals. Are
there ever any players not on that list that you guys think why have they been?
So Abby will put up 4 players. Adelaide have put up 5. And they're generally quite close, you know. So we're on the same path. So Adelaide, Carlton, Collingwood, Essendon, Geelong, and so forth, and you go down the line. So obviously me and Pav will do the WA teams, but we'll pipe in for our specific position. So if I see a good defender at Adelaide that might have not been mentioned, that's my responsibility. Eddie Betts' his responsibility, small crafty forwards, forward line pressure. If there's 2 players that are neck and neck for a position, this is later on in the year, well then champion data sitting on the meeting, and then we get relative stats. So, but our responsibility is to make sure we watch as much football as possibly we can. So I try and watch 5 or 6 games each weekend. I can't do all 9 because life, family, kids and so forth. But one I enjoy, and then we pick a squad after the first meeting, which is around about the 55 mark, 50, 53, depending, You'll see the next time we meet is the most serious meeting, which is after round 22, round 21, 22, depending how it all lines up. Some of those at round 12 may have dropped off, got a season-ending injury, so it starts to filter out. And then you've got some latecomers that have had a massive surge.
That weren't in that initial.
They weren't like this year. Marcus Bontempelli missed the first 5, calf. So it wasn't really a consideration in the first meeting. Come second, he just had about 8 consecutive games, BOG. He was just the best player in the competition. So basically we said, well, that's why I probably put him on the bench. He didn't get a starting lineup because he missed those 5 games. But the minimum criteria is 16 games, so you've got to play 16 games to be considered. And then that second meeting is quite intense because we've got to get it down to under 50, around about 44, which is the squad.
Yeah.
So you got the squad announcement. So we try and do 18, 12 and 12, roughly like that with your backs and forwards. Doesn't have to be exactly that, but you've got to have a good proportion that you've covered all the games. And sometimes it could be an anomaly. There's more forwards and backs this year. A couple of years ago there wasn't. We were a bit lean on the backs. There was more forwards. I think this year kind of balanced up a little bit the other way. And you get midfielders a dime a dozen everywhere, so... That's the 44, and then we meet 2 weeks later. In that second meeting, we've nearly picked 85% of the side. We know the ruckman is.
Yep.
We know that, Jordan Dawson's probably going to be in the guts. Jeremy Cameron, is your key forward. Riley Thilthorpe at that time was locked down. So, those 2 were in their positions. Jack Gunston was coming home and kicking strong, kicked a lot of goals. So you got to get your balance right and so forth. And then we do the last one on Zoom. And we pick the final side and pick the captain and the vice captain, and we settle on the squad of 44, which is big in the sense of recognising, and that came in about 5, 6, maybe even longer, to recognise how close some guys got.
Yes.
And clubs like Fremantle had 5 representatives in the 44 this year, 2 got in the final 22. So Freo, really had an impactful year with some players that dominated. Whereas Hawthorn, they've been, really consistent in the last 2 years. They've only had 1 or 2 or 3 in the squad, and 1 or 2 only make the final team. Hence, is such their evenness across the team. So you've got to balance that as well too. So
do you with the final selection? Do you all put through your 22 and then
prior to each meeting, you have to submit your side.
and then there's clashes. There's probably ones that line up and.
Yeah.
You know, let's use Jordan Dawson. Everyone has Jordan Dawson.
Yeah. So from that, if we're stuck on a position, there may have been 6 for one particular player and 3 for another particular player that had a forward pocket specialist or a winger. So the wingers sometimes, there was a period there we had no wingers, so we pushed let's say a Christian Petrarca at the wing and never played wing. But the last couple of years we've had Josh Dacos, we've had Bailey Smith that played it, 10%, 12%, 20% on the wing. Then Hugh McCluggage played a bit on the wing previously. This year was a bit more, in the guts. But you're comfortable you can push those guys to the wing. You don't put Bontempelli on the wing. He's never played there, So we're very conscious of that. And that's the same thing. I think this year was the first year we had 4 midfielders on the bench, which was something that I'm totally opposed with. I think you need some flexibility. But
I was wondering that because there's a lot of people on the selection committee. So you're totally opposed to it, but there's a majority or
you still got to pick the side as if it's going to run down the race and play. You've got to have some flexibility. Okay, you've got a mid that's gone. I think we had Isaac Heaney, who's played a lot of mid but kicked a lot of goals, so he was our half forward.
Yeah.
So mid half forward. I'm comfortable with that role. But you'd like, because there's a lot of midfielders, a lot of good midfielders. And one of my biggest regrets was, and it was hard, and there's some hard luck stories. Luke Shuey was never an All-Australian. He was 2 years in a row. He was one of the best midfielders in the competition, but he was up against, I think, at the time, they made him, he's still been, it's Dustin Martin, Patrick Dangerfield. I mean, where does
Cripps and Neil?
Yeah, where do you put at 5? Yeah. So it's 5. So Abel and Judd had finished by that time, or coming towards the end. Luke Shuey, and I remember a couple of the selectors saying, "We decided side," and they didn't want to leave. They says, "No, we've made a mistake here. We've got to get Luke Shuey in." Couldn't get him in. You would have had to taken someone like Dustin Martin out. How do you do that? So that's the hardest part. And we get criticised every year, get absolutely torn strips off. How come you didn't put Luke Shuey in? I said, okay, we'll take Dustin Martin out. Well, no, you can't take him out. I said, well, 23 don't go into 22, and there's always one or two. That one stuck in my mind. Maybe I was a bit close to it because I watched a lot of Luke that year.
Yes.
And watched a lot of West Coast and Freo. And he was in the best 2 or 3 midfielders in the competition. We just couldn't even get him on the bench, So that was. I remember Cameron Ling. He was like Devo for him, and he couldn't get him in the All-Australian side. So that's the way it goes.
That was just a little teaser of our full episode. They're out Wednesdays on YouTube, and you can listen to them wherever you get your podcast. Go on, get out of here.